Well, hi, and welcome to the Christian Contrast, where we talk about how walking with Jesus leads us to live differently than the world around us. And I'm excited. This week is the third of our 5 weeks where we're going to be highlighting some of our different local outreach partners as a part of our Justice and Mercy series. And I am privileged to be here with N Thorward and also with Karen Althaus. And you are the president of Newcomers
with an S.
Newcomers with an S. Newcomers Access Center. Mm-hmm. And Karen, you are our church liaison, helping us get connected there, because for each of our local outreach partners, we have somebody at the church helping us stay connected. I'm excited to talk about this because you guys are one of our newer partners, but you're also doing things that are really significant in our community. So in a few minutes, I want to get into just hearing a little bit about your story and how this organization came about. But first, could you just give us a snapshot of what Newcomers Access Center does?
Well, if you want to know what we do and what we need, I have it all written out right here.
There we go.
This list, which is a pretty poignant visual.
Yeah.
Newcomers Access Center serves refugees and immigrants. And how we started off was I moved to Claremont about 8.5 years ago. I'd lived overseas, and I'd lived in Washington, D.C. area for about 28 years, raised my family there, and I got tired of the winter, so we moved west. And I still had my business, and a neighbor of mine said, she was connected with the local school, and she said, there's a young girl who's just in the 9th grade over at the high school, and she just came from Syria a few days ago, and she's having a really hard time, and maybe you'd like to tutor over there. Well, I'm not an ESL teacher. I mean, I used to be a kindergarten teacher, and I think that's a huge leap to ESL. And so I said, okay. So I went over there, and the teacher asked me to come 2 or 3 mornings a week, and this little girl was so shy. And she was so sweet, and she wasn't feeling very awake. Most teenagers aren't, but in the Syrian culture, the main meal is late in the day. So she wasn't getting enough sleep at night. So I met her and worked with her a little bit, and then I met her family, and then I met some other Syrian families, and then I met people at the local mosque, and then some politicians, and then community people, and it just grew from there. And this young girl is now in college. She's a math major. I just saw her about 3 weeks ago. I haven't seen, and she has yet to allow me to take her photograph.
Okay.
But a real smart little girl, and that's how it kind of got started. And then a few people in the community had a meeting at a local, I think it was the Presbyterian church, and there were some people helping refugees, and then someone said, well, we should get ourselves organized. There must have been about 40 or 50 people at this meeting. And so the local Quaker organization offered their facility, and it wasn't big enough. And so I said, well, and this was in late 2006, the fall of 2016, I think, 15 or 16. And so I offered my home, and for 2 weeks, every other week for 6 months, people came to my home, and we met, and people just rose to the occasion and said, I can do that, and I can do that. And a friend of mine who is now deceased, Barbara Oswald, started an access program when she was in Dearborn, Michigan. And during this process, she showed up at my door with this very fancy 4-color brochure. And she says, Ann, you should start one of these. And I said, I have a business and I'm too old. And she says, no, you're not. And I looked in here, it's like $25 million budget. And I'm thinking, we're trying to find money to print something on paper. And so it just grew from that. And I ran out of chairs in my living room, so we had to move our meeting to another location. One of the retirement homes had a space where we could meet. And one of the many fun parts of that process was thinking of a name. We wanted it to be more all-inclusive. We wanted to not name a city or a town or a state, because we wanted to offer to all immigrants and all refugees. And as I said, the people we helped the most at the beginning were the Syrians, because they were the ones that were coming at the time. Many of whom, as Karen had mentioned, were traumatized by war, and some of the little ones were born in the refugee camps. And when they were in the refugee camps, education was at a minimum. You've probably heard this from missionaries as well. So when they came, they needed everything. And sometimes we had to pay for them to raise money and pay for them to stay in a motel, which is highly unpleasant, especially if you have a large family. A couple large families had to get 2 rooms. So that's kind of where it started. And then we just had 2 or 3 times we discussed the name and came up with Newcomers. And I wanted to put an apostrophe in there, but I lost that battle.
Yeah. You got to work in a team.
Gotta go with the flow anyway.
Yeah.
So the Newcomers Access Center, and our goal is to help the clients become independent. Statistics show that immigrants, it takes about 7 years on average to become independent in the new nation, be it here or wherever they are. And this can include people who are immigrants or displaced persons internally as well. And so we were focused on the Muslim community primarily because that was our clientele. And then, of course, we have clients from Egypt, Palestine, Jordan, periphery. And then we have, of course, then the Afghans. And the Afghans are kind of an interesting situation because they come on a special visa. It's called SIV, stands for Special Immigration Visa. And these visas are given to men primarily. There's a few women who worked for the U.S. military while they were in Afghanistan. And they were allowed to bring their immediate family, which is a spouse and children. No parents, no ancillary people, no siblings. And that's been real rough because many of them were dependent on the extended family to watch the small children so the adults could go to school or work. And just this last week, a gentleman who's been here 6 years now, and he's got his U.S. citizenship so he can sponsor his parents. And he's been begging me, and I've been trying to find a way. He needs a co-sponsor on their application because his income isn't quite high enough. I don't remember, it's short by maybe less than $8,000 or $9,000. So what he's looking for is somebody who will just sign a paper as a co-sponsor, and he will take all responsibility financially for his parents. And that's another case. When they come, he's got 2 preschoolers. His parents can watch the children, and his wife, who used to be a university chemistry professor, who's trying to get her English up to speed, can go to work. Maybe not in that field, but she could go to work. And so that's one of the needs we have right now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it came. And you wanted to know how I came involved?
Yeah.
I think, in the community. And, ever since I was very young, I was involved in social justice. I must have been in primary school, and my mother was making a basket for the we called them the poor children. Nowadays they call them the underserved or whatever it is. And so she said, go to your room and get a toy to give away. That's a tough thing for a 7, 8, or 9-year-old to do, And we didn't have the plethora of toys that kids have now, but it was tough, and I remembered that. And then when I was living back east and the Vietnamese came in 1975, I helped in helping tutoring. Because that was the need, reading children's books with adults. I find that to be the best way. And especially if they have kids, they can read to their children and they both learn together. So that's I've always done social justice work. And so this fell in my lap. And then a couple of years after I was involved with it, I got more and more involved. And I thought, this is a lot more fun than my job. And I was a financial planner, and I was blessed to sell my practice. A fellow I knew for many years wanted to buy it. And I said, it's yours. And because I've got better things to do.
Yeah.
And
a new direction.
I've got a new direction. And yes, I am president of the board of directors, and that's since January. We switch around, and I will put a plug in that we're always looking for board of directors, people who want to serve. We meet formally 6 times a year, but we meet in between because right now we're in a little transition and we need to put our heads together on things. And
that's good. And we'll get in later on. We'll talk more just about the whole idea of the opportunities for people to serve.
Sure.
But I love you talking about this. One of the things for us as a church, one of the reasons why this is so compelling for us is because throughout Scripture, especially in the Old Testament, but in the New Testament, there's massive talk about God's heart for, and it's termed in different ways in different translations, but the foreigner among you, the stranger among you,
Yes.
the alien among you, and just
Yes.
how significant that is. And so talking about the work that you're doing, we know this is close to God's heart because of the vulnerabilities there.
That's right.
And before going a little more into that, Karen, I would just love to hear from you, just being the liaison, being around this, what have been some things that you've seen that have just sort of captured your attention or got you excited about this?
Well, first of all, just getting to know Anne and her passion for helping refugees. And I guess I didn't realize, you watch the news, you see stuff happen. We all watched what happened when people were escaping Afghanistan. And we know what's going on in Ukraine right now, but it's real easy to watch the news, get emotional, and then turn it off and make dinner or do something like that. But when I'm interfacing with Anne more often and I'm hearing stories of people really here in the United States trying to, the United States government has brought them here and is depending on the non-government agencies to help them out. It hits a little closer to home and it's a little more on your front of your mind. And it's hard. I can't even imagine what a lot of these families are going through. And I worry about taking care of my own kids as they were growing up, and they're worried about so much more of that, than what I had to worry about. And their livelihood, what they were doing before, they can't do here because they can't speak English, perhaps. That it brings it to the front of your mind a lot more. So it's been fun for me because I'm representing LBF and I'm able to go and, help buy supplies on behalf of LBF for newcomers, people getting in their apartments and trying to get outfitted with some supplies. And there's so much more that we could be doing as a church, but it takes a little time to get everybody acclimated or understand what's going on with a particular charity and to develop a passion for some of these different things that are going on out there and the needs in the community. But it's been an adventure for me, a learning experience, because I think I didn't know or understand what was really happening in our own community here, or maybe I just had a blind eye because when I turned off the TV, I got distracted in my own life.
Yeah, well, and that's actually something I'd like to kind of ask about next. There's probably a lot of us that we have very limited interactions with people, especially with first-generation immigrants.
Right.
And so, I'm curious, what you have experienced some sort of misconceptions or things that people just wouldn't know about the needs and sort of what life is like for both first-generation immigrants and for refugees who have come over here.
Right. Well, there's little things. A friend of mine, had a oak dining room table with, I think, 5 or 6 oak chairs. It was lovely. And I asked this family if they liked it. I had a picture. I showed it to them. And they'd been here maybe 6 months. And they're from Afghanistan, from Syria. Are they? Yeah, I think so. I get their nations of origin.
It runs together.
Yeah. It's all a blur because I don't know any of those languages. But anyway, oh yes, this would be nice. And it's tempting to expect that they understand you. This culture and the Afghans in particular do not use a table and chairs. They eat on the floor. So what they really needed in their apartment, because they had the baby had spilled something and it stained in there, and they were worried because the landlord wasn't going to like that when they moved out. And so what they needed was not a table and chairs, some of those plastic tablecloths from the Dollar Tree, so they could put them on the floor and prepare and serve their meals. And so there's little things like that you learn about their cultures and how they work. And of course, we now have a network of translators, and some of them are fabulous because they let me call at the drop of a hat. Some of them are just in conversation. Some will come, like when I'm dealing with a financial issue, trying to help a family figure out why they need to work more and why they need to save for a security deposit, especially with teenagers that get a little money and they're off to the phone store or wherever they are, that's kind of, so if I'm doing something like that, I have a translator come into the room and we try to work together. So in answer to your questions, there's just so many little things like that. And so at first we had our our office at a church down in Pomona, and we didn't have any housing. We had housing for one or two families, and that didn't work out too well in the church building. So we were there, and then a year ago, this last month, September, the Claremont School of Theology offered us space. And I think I mentioned it's 2 apartments combined. So our office in a space with 3 full bathrooms and 2 kitchens, which we really don't. All I need is a teapot to heat water for tea, you know. And and they've also given us 4 apartments. And so the idea is the family would come and stay 3-4 months. A couple of them stayed 5 months, but usually 3 to 4 months. And during that time, they get their work permits if that's under their visa permission. They get a job. They get kids. We get the kids in school. We have English classes every day at the center. And some days we have a lot, some days we don't. And excuse me. And so there's a lot of activity going on, and that's when the volunteers come. And sometimes, you know, volunteers aren't sure what to do, but we always find something. So so it was Afghans, and now it turns out that the 4 apartments are housing 4 Ukrainian families.
Great.
2 of them are single women with children, and their spouses are still in Ukraine. One is a young couple who came a week ago, and they have a grown son who can't get out. The borders are closed, and they're really worried about him. There's another family who won't be staying with us. We found alternative housing for him in someone's home. That usually doesn't work out too well because of the cultural differences, and the language, as you mentioned, Karen, is really problematic. And there's a gentleman in Rancho Cucamonga who has 2, he's a scientist and he works from home, and he has 2 Ukrainian families living in his house. And they all seem to be getting along well. And he and I talked about, should he charge them rent? And I said, absolutely. The ones that live on the Claremont School of Theology campus pay rent. It's below market, but it's real important for them to establish credit, because that's the first thing that's going to be needed when they go look for a place to live on their own. And so one of the huge things, and Karen knows that we raise money for, is rent supplements. We've never paid a full month. We've never paid a full security deposit, because we want them to have an investment in what they're, in the true sense of what they're doing. So, but right now that's a big problem, because the Claremont School of Theology has asked us to leave the campus. They're being sold, or the Claremont colleges, the Cross Foothill, are buying the campus, and we don't know when that's going to happen. So I asked Karen, I said, do you guys have any space?
You're going to be looking for a new home for this organization. Yeah.
But that's one way that you need help, is for people who, if they don't have time to volunteer, you talk about sharing time, treasures, and talent. Maybe some of your treasures can help with something like this, where they need supplementation for apartment rent and different things. And when people go to volunteer for helping with English, they're not necessarily English teachers. So I don't hope that people don't feel like they have to have a degree in English to go help. Sometimes it's just reading and helping somebody.
And we have a lot of tools to use, like
Great.
we have calendars and flashcards and all that kind of business. And in every community that I know of in California, there is an adult school where you can go and learn English, and it's free. And you don't have to live, like I can go to Claremont if I live in Upland, and vice versa, from what I gather. And it just depends, but then you're not working. So, you know, that's a tough one. But you're right, helping with getting them rent. And the thing is, they haven't been here. One family came 2 weeks ago. They landed at LAX. I got a call the night before saying, and they're arriving at 8:30, and they'll be in Claremont at however time that would be, 10 11 o'clock. Darling family with a 2-year-old. And and we have another family that came in mid-September. The father, he's a pediatrician. He worked in Kabul many years. He worked with a physician who's retired, who now lives in Pasadena. So they kind of hooked up, and he came with his 2 younger children, 2 and 6, I think, or 3 and 6 years old. I haven't met him personally yet, and his wife only came 2 days ago because of some administrative snafu. The U.S. Embassy for Afghanistan is in Qatar, so everybody has to go there, and sometimes they wait months for their paperwork. And it's unfortunate that the U.S. government has financial allotments for certain people based on their visa and their country of origin, and they're not all the same, and I have not memorized them. But I just want to share with you how they find us. We work with 2 or 3 resettlement agencies. And resettlement agencies, there's about 300 of them in the U.S., have a direct line to the Department of State and Immigration Services. And so they find out about people. And I probably get, on average, 3 calls a week. And do you have any housing? Do you have any housing? Do you have any housing for that? And so they will call me. As I said, it's not always a lot of notice because they don't know when that person's getting on the plane. And then they call us and say, what do you have? So right now, the gentleman, the physician, he has found an apartment, and somehow, the average cost of a 1-bedroom apartment is what? $2,300 a month. And because they have no credit, the landlord wants a co-signer and 2 months rent and a huge security deposit. I mean, it's very expensive.
For sure.
And so we're going to be really sad that we have to leave those 4 apartments. I'm just going to be really sad. And we have furnished them. So when they leave and go to a new place, as far as I'm concerned, they can take all the furniture with them.
Yeah.
I was hoping the School of Theology would change their mind, but I don't think they're.
It's not looking
And that
really
might be
cool.
another way that people in the congregation can help, is if maybe somebody is involved in property management and has access or knowledge of landlords who might have compassion for the refugees and maybe be willing to take a little bit of a chance and not require so much security deposit or whatnot, and
that's true.
in an effort to kind of help. So there's all sorts of ways that the people in the church can maybe use some of the connections that they have in the community to help. We've got some folks that I've talked to that have trucks even, and
we're going to need that.
and be able to help drive
Help with the
and
move,
take furniture around and stuff at kind of a moment's notice if Anne needs some help transporting furniture into one of these apartments for folks. And so people just being on a call list like that is a way that they can
we have
help.
a list of people who have trucks. And
That's
list
great.
of people, a couple of them have trucks, but they don't lift anything. So we have to.
Got to get in.
Yeah.
Well, when what I love about what you both are just talking about here is to say for opportunities for involvement, because I agree, Karen, you had said earlier, just the idea of, whether it was thinking of some of the recent things, Syria and then Afghanistan and then Ukraine, we see these things and our hearts grieve, and then we just feel like, but I can't do anything about this. And now to say like, well, there is actually something we can do.
Well, it does a lot in your heart
I'm
when you
sure,
do so.
yeah.
I mean, we had, I gave a talk at a synagogue, and I brought a client with us, and they were going to move the following Saturday. And I said, well, we have a need right now. We need a truck and someone to drive it to take them from Claremont. They moved near Torrance area. And this woman came, she says, I love to drive trucks. If you pay for the U-Haul, I'll be glad to do it. And there she was with her team on Saturday morning with, and the family. It was so grateful. And we were so grateful.
Which is wonderful, because you get something like that where you say, well, what skill set do you need? You need a truck. Low level skill set. And even some of the stuff that you were saying, hey, coming into the office and just being available to help out, being there to help be an English conversation partner or help with things. And so things that a lot of us could say, okay, I qualify for that. But then also bringing up that there are people who have more of an area of expertise that they could bring to this, either
professionals.
Either with English or like you were talking about, Karen, with helping with the housing, which is such a huge need, and figuring out, okay, do we have some connections? Do we have some ways? And then certainly also, like you talked about, the financing, the financial giving, just to help supplement that, so that people can, like you said, they can have some skin in the game and have some dignity of paying the rent when they go, but so that we can help out, because this is Southern California. The average Southern Californian is trying to figure out how to do this. You got somebody with a lot less resources trying to make rent in Southern California. No easy task. And so what a great thing for us to say, just even through financial giving, we can help set somebody up in a situation like this. Because you were saying many of the Afghani refugees are professionals. They're very...
Many of the Ukrainians. We have...
The Ukrainians also.
I told you, a pediatrician. We have a woman who has a master's degree in finance and banking, and she's working at a shop in the mall. I mean, this is a we have a woman who's an economist, worked for the Ukrainian government. She traveled to China, Japan, and other places for her job. She is working in a early morning shift. I'm talking early morning shift at a gas station, and making the coffee and selling the hot dogs and the donuts and all that business. And, it's hard for them to see a way out.
Oh, sure.
But the wonderful part is, and then we have 3 adults who are working in the same Italian restaurant, washing dishes. And the manager came to I saw him at the restaurant because I had gone there for a meeting. And he says, I'm coming over in the afternoon and see you, Ann. I said, okay. He says, and so I turned around in the office, and there he is standing in the lobby. And he says, don't you have somebody who can cook? And I happened to get 2 gals from Ukraine come on. And I said, how's your Russian, Oscar? He says, well, not too good. I said, but if you show them what to do, he says, well, they can make pizza. So I don't know if he's hired them yet or not, but I'll find out this week.
That's great.
Yes.
Well, and
so there's so many opportunities. Yeah. And then, of course, it's housing, and the second one is transportation. We've got 3 adults who need a car, and I call it a transportation car. And we are not in the car business. And so if someone has an automobile and they want to donate it to us, we have a program. It's on our website where you donate the car.
Perfect.
And it goes to auction, and then we get, I think, 70% of the proceeds. So that helps. Or if you have a vehicle you want to donate to a person, I get you in touch with the client. We stay out of that transaction because we don't want to appear to be knowledgeable about the condition of the car.
Right, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I love this again, and we're gonna in the description for the video when we put this up, we'll make sure to link to your guys' website so that people can see this. But I know something that you also both were talking about before we started recording was in February. You have this gala coming up.
This is going to be so nice.
And so let's talk about this just as another opportunity for people to become involved.
Sure. We pre-planned. It's been 3 years since we planned it because our first one fell through with COVID. But it's going to be at the Padua Hills Theater location. I don't know if you've ever been there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've not been there for an event. This will be my first.
I got to do a wedding there one time.
Oh, you did?
And it's a beautiful setting.
It's a beautiful place. Yeah. So every year they allow 3 or 4 nonprofits to use it for a very small fee. So that planning is going. It's on Sunday afternoon, the 26th of February, 4 to 7 o'clock, and we're going to also have a silent auction. Maybe there's people in your congregation who want to donate something for the silent auction, and that can be services. There's maybe they know of a B&B in Big Bear or Palm Springs or somewhere where they could get us that opportunity, and get those things donated. I'm trying to think. So the silent auction, there's going to be a dinner, and there's going to be lots of fun music, acoustic music from a little folk group. And then
potentially also volunteers just to kind of help run the whole thing.
Yeah, and maybe your congregation would want to purchase a couple tables and be a sponsor. And if you're a sponsor, then there's a list on our website. You get extra opportunity tickets, and you get your name in the program and all that recognition and so forth and so on. And then we will need, and we had a part of the planning meeting yesterday. Turns out that some of the people we need as volunteers, we presume are going to be younger because we are going to have those iPad automatic payments for when you purchase something at the auction or at the soda or the wine. You got
to have somebody that speaks that language.
It's not me.
Some tech savvy folks.
Tech savvy, that's right.
And so one of our young people, we have 3 interns from the colleges were helping us, and she said, "Yeah, we don't carry credit cards. Everything's on their phone." So I said, "Well, that leaves me out." So. So we need.
So once again, lots of avenues for involvement in something like that. It's donors, as participants, as volunteers.
Set up, clean up the whole bit. Yep. And so the event's from 4 to 7, but the setup is going to start at 12:30. And we are blessed to have. We are so blessed. A woman who is a professional event planner who's done this tons of times, very high end. And we met at a meeting like pre-pandemic, and. We just hit it off, and she said, "I want to do this for Newcomers Access Center."
Wonderful.
Yesterday she had her assignments, like who's going to do what first and second and third, and the flow chart. So if you're doing checking in people. Then after an hour, you go over there and you do something else. I don't know what all.
Yeah.
But whatever she says, I agree.
That's good. A real pro.
I'm just there to write checks when she needs to. Well, I don't write the checks, but
So
provides.
as people are watching this podcast, if they do feel like, hey, this is something I may want to help with, or I want to be available that day, you have them reach out to the church office, and then the church office will connect them with me.
Perfect.
And
That'd be
I'll
really
get
nice,
people coordinated and ready for volunteer work. If somebody wants to host a table, same idea. Get them connected through the office. They'll put that person in touch with me. And if somebody's thinking that this has inspired them, and maybe they've got a different idea of how they might be able to provide some help or resource to newcomers, and they're not sure if it would work out or be something that newcomers needs, please contact the church office. They'll connect you with me, and we'll figure out a way to make it all work and get you connected with newcomers. But that's my hope, is that we can get more and more people at this church involved with newcomers, and I'm here to help make that connection happen. And just go to the church office or call the church office and have them connect you with
That'd
me.
be fabulous.
Yeah. Well,
There's a lot of things. And there's
a
another
lot.
event coming up November 12th, which is Veterans Weekend on the 12th. I said that twice, sorry. And at the Grace Lutheran Church in Upland. I don't know if you know Reverend
Okay.
Wesley, yeah. And they wanted to do something for a refugee group, and they selected us, and we were just thrilled as the
good.
beneficiary. They're doing a concert and then a cheese and wine reception afterward, and it's at 4:30 that Saturday afternoon, and that's on the website too. And
Wonderful.
so the agreement was that they wanted to do it, but our organization would have to take responsibility in selling the tickets. And again, that's a younger person's job, not mine. But they figured all the technology out, and they're doing that. So we're real excited about things. But I think the gala is going to be very special. Very
Good.
special.
I'm glad.
I know there's a book group that's going to join. I think there's a bridge club that's going to buy a sponsorship. So there's not primarily people of faith, because they're the first ones that step up to the plate in this situation. That's always the case. At least that's my experience.
Yeah.
And so they want to come as a group, sponsor a couple of tables, and then bring their people, and it's kind of fun. I mean, you're with your friends and you're doing good work. But there's other opportunities for the volunteers if they want to get to know a family. The families are little reticent, especially at first, because they don't know who to trust. But if they work with us, and we do background checks on all volunteers, and that's just a routine. And only once has someone refused to do it. And I said, I'm sorry, you can't be at the center, and you certainly can't be around the kids.
Right.
I don't know the reason, and I don't want to know the reason, but that's something we do as a matter of routine. And it's for their protection as well as ours. So, we always need the office vacuumed. I mean, we always have things that, home, what I call honeydew stuff to go on. And since we're planning to relocate, I don't have enough yet, but I have different volunteers in charge of different things. One's in charge of the art projects, one's in charge of the diaper things, one's in charge of, different, we have jobs. We have a small computer lab, and I think we're going to downsize to 2 computers for clients. They can come anytime that and if we're not having office hours, we try to meet them at a different time and sit with them. That's another thing people can do, is sit and help them with the computer and with filling out questionnaires, getting them, if they want to take a college class, how to enroll. I got a call yesterday from a client. Actually, it was a text. He doesn't use the phone. And say that his wife wants to enroll in the college. So I've got, somebody knows how to do that. It's pretty straightforward. But for immigrants, like you said, Pastor Dan, first generation, they don't know how to read those forms. I don't even know half the time what they're asking, So that can be you don't have to have training in that to read a form. And the other thing is getting them, I mentioned transportation to and from social services, to and from the Social Security office, and those sorts of things. And those types of needs don't happen in one visit.
Sure.
It's many visits. And of course, then there's the medical appointments and that sort of thing. That's another whole ball of wax.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
That's a great opportunity for someone who might be retired, who has the ability to go to a doctor's appointment at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and maybe could be a mentor to that family or a sponsor to that family and whatnot.
Yeah.
The families are so grateful. I remember some of the things that LBF was able to donate for some of the different apartments, the supplies. You got a very nice thank you note from the family and shared it with me. It was just they're very grateful, and I know it's probably hard for them they don't know who's helping them really, and but they're very grateful people.
Yeah, and we have we have needs for volunteers. For example, I call them the manager. We need somebody to come and sit in the lobby and be the manager, just take questions and try to find out how we can help. And we have a list of people who are drivers. So if we needed, as you said, Karen, someone to go from here to there at 1 p.m, not knowing how long the medical visit's going to take, who can do it? The woman that's working at the shopping mall gets off work at 10 o'clock, and she said she'll take the bus, but she has to walk to the local transfer station, which is several blocks, and I don't want her walking out there at 10:30 at night, So we put out the notice, and of course, a couple of people answer right away. It's usually my bedtime, but this once I'll do it, that sort of thing.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited just for us to figure out what this looks like and us partnering with you. This is such a significant thing in our community that we're excited to be a part of. And so thanks so much for taking the time to come and let us in on it, and
You're
especially,
welcome.
and thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you very much.
And Karen, thank you for helping our church get more connected here. That's such a valuable thing that you are sort of the vehicle for us to figure out how we get more people involved in this great organization.
Yeah.
And thank you to all of you who took the time to listen to or to watch this. We're excited about talking to, maybe you're listening to this and you're not part of LBF Church, but you're in the community and you say, this is something I want to check out. But especially for those of you who are part of our church, that as we look to live out the calling for Jesus in our community and show the justice and mercy of God as a sign of what Jesus is doing, these sorts of opportunities are significant for all of us. So thanks for taking the time to watch. All the episodes of the Christian Contrast podcast you can find on our YouTube channel for Life Bible Fellowship Church, and also just on our website, lbf.church. And you can comment and give some feedback or give questions, and we'll be happy to engage with you on that. So thank you both for taking the time to do this. And
Thank you.
for those of you watching, we'll see you again in 2 weeks with a new episode.